All right, so let's jump into something that I think a lot of our listeners can relate to, and that's dodging financial traps. Specifically, we're talking about investment scams. You want to make sure you're savvy enough to spot these things, protect yourself. And we've got some research here that not only sort of breaks down how these scams work, but also, gives you some strategies, some actionable things you can actually do to protect yourself.
Yeah, I think it's really about being informed. It's
Yeah.
not about being paranoid, right?
Yeah.
It's just knowledge. Knowledge is power in this area.
Exactly. And one of the things that jumped out at me, actually, from these sources was the term fin scams.
Hmm.
I like that because it immediately signals that this isn't just about bad investments, right? This is about, deliberate deception.
Yeah.
This is about someone trying to pull the wool over your eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are schemes, right, that are designed to exploit psychological vulnerabilities and separate you from your hard-earned cash.
Okay, so let's talk about these schemes. Our sources lay out a whole rogues gallery of common scams, and it's striking how they often prey on, like, our deepest desires,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, take Ponzi schemes, for example.
Mhm.
Ponzi schemes, I mean, they tap into that universal desire for quick and easy wealth.
Right, and
Mhm.
they often have, like, a charismatic figurehead, like, Bernie Madoff, who creates this aura of, like, legitimacy and exclusivity,
Hmm.
and everyone wants in.
Yeah. I mean, Madoff's scheme was like a textbook example, right?
Yeah.
It shows how even sophisticated, like experienced investors, I mean, these people can be lured in by that combination of, impressive returns, but also the social proof,
Mm.
right? Everybody wanted to be part of this exclusive club that was seemingly defying market logic.
Right, yeah, and that's how the track is set. The source paints this picture, like this vivid picture of early investors. They're getting paid with money from new investors, not actual profits. It's like that classic pyramid scheme that's destined to collapse, when that flow of new money dries up.
Yeah. And when it collapses, I mean, the devastation is widespread.
Yeah.
It's not just about financial losses. I mean, this is about shattered trust. It's about the realization that even like seemingly reliable systems can be corrupted.
Right. And it can be hard to spot. Then there are these high yield investment programs, or HYIPs,
Yeah.
where, this is where the term too good to be true really comes into play.
Yeah, I mean, the promise of extraordinarily high returns, I'm talking like exceeding 10% per month, that's a major red flag. Like sustainable investments, they just don't generate those kinds of returns consistently.
So how do these HYIPs, like, create the illusion of success? I mean, people are seeing returns, at least initially.
Yeah, well, a lot of it is smoke and mirrors, right? They might be using funds from new investors to pay off the earlier ones, so it creates this like temporary illusion of profitability. Or they might engage in these like complex financial maneuvers that kind of obscure the true nature of their operations.
So it's all about, creating a facade of legitimacy while operating outside regulatory frameworks.
Exactly. They often lack transparency, so it makes it really hard to track where your money is going and how it's being used.
Mhm.
And that lack of oversight, that's what makes them incredibly risky.
It sounds like a high-stakes game of musical chairs.
It is, right.
It's where the music eventually stops and someone is left holding the bag.
Yeah, and the sad reality is that, the ones left holding a bag are often those who can least afford the losses.
Okay, so we've got Ponzi schemes, HYIP, both of those, sort of preying on this desire for quick riches. What other types of scams are lurking out there?
Well, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about scams that exploit a different kind of human vulnerability, the fear of missing out.
FOMO.
Exactly, FOMO. Pump and dump schemes, those are a classic example of this. You've got scammers that artificially inflate the price of a stock, often using, misleading information or even like coordinated social media campaigns
Yeah.
to create this sense of hype and urgency.
So they create this artificial bubble, and then what?
Well, once the price has been, pumped up high enough, then they dump their shares at that inflated price, and they leave unsuspecting investors holding worthless stock as the bubble bursts.
It's like this carefully orchestrated wave of manipulation, right? They're riding the tide of, like, social proof, and then it crashes down, leaving, a trail of victims in its wake.
Yeah, and unfortunately, with the rise of social media and these online trading platforms, pump and dump schemes have become incredibly prevalent.
It's like the Wild West of finance out there.
It is.
Right. The rules are constantly being rewritten. Like,
Right.
the scams are evolving at, like, lightning speed.
Yeah, and that's why it's so crucial to stay informed and be aware of the tactics that these scammers use, right? to exploit those psychological vulnerabilities.
So it's like having a mental checklist, right, of red
Yeah.
flags.
Ex-
So far, we've got unrealistic returns, lack of transparency, playing on the fear of missing out. What other warning signs should we be looking for?
Well, one of the most common red flags is high-pressure sales tactics. These scammers, they often create a sense of urgency. They're pushing you to make a quick decision without giving you time to think critically or do your research.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to short circuit your rational decision-making process.
Exactly. They know if you have time to step back, do your due diligence, consult with some trusted advisors, that the cracks in their schemes are going to start to show.
So it's all about creating this like frenzy, this get in now or miss out mentality.
Exactly. They'll use phrases like, limited time offer or once in a lifetime opportunity to create that sense of scarcity and pressure you into making a hasty decision.
Okay, so pressure tactics, big red flag. What other like tricks do these scammers have up their sleeves?
Well, another common tactic is to create a false sense of security by exploiting shared values or affiliations. This is what's known as affinity fraud.
Oh, right, right. This is the one where they target specific groups, right? Like religious organizations or ethnic communities.
Exactly. They prey on that trust that exists within these groups, and they often present themselves as, members or insiders to gain credibility.
It's almost like a wolf in sheep's clothing. Someone you think you can trust turns out to be the one leading you to the slaughter.
Yeah, it's a particularly insidious form of manipulation because it really does exploit our natural inclination to trust those that we perceive as being part of our tribe, so to speak.
So let's say you're approached with an investment opportunity and something feels off. Maybe it ticks a few boxes on our, red flag checklist. What's the first step you should take?
Pause. Take a breath. Don't let yourself get swept up in the excitement or the pressure. Remember, legitimate investments can withstand scrutiny.
So it's about like slowing down the process, engaging your critical thinking skills.
Exactly. Start by asking questions. Don't be afraid to be skeptical. If someone's being evasive or dismissive of your questions, that's a major red flag right there.
It's like a job interview. You're not just evaluating the opportunity, you're evaluating the people behind it.
Exactly. Dig deeper into their background, their qualifications, their track record. Verify their claims independently, right? Don't just rely on their testimonials or marketing materials.
And I imagine that with the internet, it's easier than ever to, kind of do your own research.
Oh, absolutely. There are a wealth of resources available online. Start by checking with the regulatory agencies like the SEC, the CFTC. They can tell you if the company or individual is registered, if there have been any complaints or disciplinary actions against them.
So it's like doing a background check on the investment itself.
Exactly. And don't forget about independent financial websites and blogs. They can offer some really good, unbiased information analysis of investment opportunities.
So you're really stressing the importance of being an active participant in your financial journey. It's not enough to just, rely on someone else's advice.
That's right. You have to be your own advocate. That means taking the time to understand the risks involved, potential downsides, the fees associated with any investment.
So let's say you've done your research, you've asked the tough questions,
Yeah.
and you're still not sure what to make of an investment opportunity. What's the next step?
Don't be afraid to seek advice from a trusted financial professional. A certified financial planner and advisor, they can help you assess the opportunity, evaluate the risks, make an informed decision based on your individual financial goals and risk tolerance.
And even if you consider yourself to be financially savvy, a second opinion can be, invaluable.
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes it takes an objective outsider to spot those red flags or potential pitfalls that we might miss. Plus, a good financial advisor can help you create a diversified portfolio that aligns with your long-term goals.
It's like having a coach in your corner, right?
It is.
Helping you navigate this complex world of finance, helping you avoid those costly mistakes.
Yeah, and remember, investing, it shouldn't be driven by fear or greed. It's about making informed decisions, based on sound principles and a clear understanding of your own financial situation.
And speaking of understanding your own financial situation, one of the things that struck me from our sources was this emphasis on emotional awareness. It's not just about understanding the scams, it's about understanding ourselves and how our own biases might make us vulnerable.
Oh, that's a great point. Scammers, they often target specific psychological vulnerabilities like our desire for quick wealth, our fear of missing out, or even our sense of trust in community.
It's like they're playing a psychological game. They're trying to exploit our weaknesses.
Exactly. And the best way to counter their game is to be aware of our own biases and emotional triggers.
So how do we do that? How do we develop that level of self-awareness?
Well, it starts with honest self-reflection. What are your financial goals? What are your fears? What are your values? And how might those values be exploited by scammers?
So if I'm someone who's like deeply passionate about, environmental sustainability, maybe I'm more susceptible to, green investment scams that promise to like save the planet while generating these unrealistic returns.
Exactly. Or if you're, heavily involved in a particular community, you might be more vulnerable to those affinity fraud schemes that target members of that group.
Yeah. It's like turning the scammer's playbook on its head.
Hmm.
By understanding our own vulnerabilities, we can anticipate their tactics. We can be better prepared to resist them.
Exactly. It's about being proactive rather than reactive.
So it's not just about knowing the enemy, it's about knowing ourselves.
That's the key. Self-awareness is your most powerful weapon in the fight against financial fraud.
This has been an incredibly eye-opening conversation. We've gone from feeling like potential victims to feeling empowered, with knowledge and strategies for protecting ourselves.
That's the goal. Remember, investing doesn't have to be a scary or risky endeavor. With the right knowledge and a healthy dose of skepticism, you can make informed decisions and achieve your financial goals while safeguarding your hard-earned money.
And on that note of empowerment, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive into investment scams. But before we do, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. Our sources have given us like a ton of information about different types of scams, and it can feel overwhelming. But I think the most important takeaway for me is this idea of like the power of asking questions.
Yeah, question everything, right?
Right.
Question the opportunity, question the people involved,
Yeah.
but most importantly, I think question your own assumptions and motivations.
It's like that old saying, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. But sometimes those scams are packaged in a way that they make them seem very believable.
That's right. That's why you got to go beyond the surface. Don't just rely on flashy marketing materials or promises of quick riches. Dig deeper. Do your own research. Talk to trusted advisors. And never, ever be afraid to walk away if something just feels off.
Yeah. It's about trusting your gut instinct, but like backing it up with solid information and a healthy dose of skepticism.
Exactly. Be a detective.
Yeah.
Right. Gather the evidence. Look for the clues. Connect the dots. And sometimes, the most important clue is that nagging feeling that something's just not quite right.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into investment scams, I want to leave our listener with a challenge.
Oh, okay. I like challenges. Bring it on.
All right, so the next time you're presented with an investment opportunity, no matter how tempting it may seem, take a step back. Put on your detective hat and ask yourself 3 questions.
Okay. I like this. Lay 'em on me.
All right, question number 1. What are the potential downsides?
Yep.
Because every investment has risks. And if someone is only highlighting the positives, that's a red flag.
Love it. What's number 2?
All right, question number 2. Who benefits from this investment and how?
Yeah.
Because sometimes, following that money trail can reveal hidden agendas or conflicts of interest.
Excellent point. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion. What's the third question?
Okay. Question number 3. Does this investment align with my values and my long-term goals?
All right.
Because if it doesn't, no amount of potential profit is worth compromising your integrity or your financial security.
Man, those are fantastic questions.
Yeah.
I think if our listener, if they just, take those questions to heart, they'll be well on their way to becoming a savvy and discerning investor.
Yeah, because ultimately it's not just about avoiding scams, right?
Right.
It's about making informed and empowered decisions that support your financial well-being and ultimately your peace of mind.
Well said. Knowledge is power. And in the world of investing, that power is yours to claim.
That's a wrap on our deep dive into investment scams. Stay vigilant out there and happy investing.